I stood in the hospital corridor, staring at the closed door of room 304, and I couldn't make myself go inside. Behind that door was my father, weak and frail, connected to machines that beeped steadily. And I hadn't seen him in 7 years. 7 years since I walked out of their house and said I never wanted to see them again. 7 years of silence. 7 years of pride and anger and stubborn independence. And now I was here, called back by a phone call that shattered my carefully constructed life. Your father had a stroke. He's asking for you. My hand shook as I reached for the door handle. What would I even say? How do you apologize for 7 years? How do you explain that you threw away the people who loved you most because you thought you knew better? How do you face the regret that's been eating at you slowly, quietly, until a moment like this forces you to see what you've lost? I had spent 7 years telling myself I made the right choice. That I was better off without them. That their old-fashioned ways and constant worrying and inability to understand my life meant I was justified in cutting them out. But standing in that hospital corridor, I knew the truth. I had been wrong. So terribly, painfully wrong. And I didn't know if it was too late to make it right. My name is Jessica, but everyone calls me Jess. I'm 34 years old. For most of my adult life, I thought I knew exactly what I wanted and who I was supposed to be. I was independent, ambitious, modern, free. I didn't need anyone telling me how to live my life. Especially not my parents. I grew up in a small town in Ohio. My parents, Frank and Margaret, were simple people. Dad worked at the local hardware store for 40 years. Mom was a homemaker who took care of me and my younger brother Daniel. We didn't have much money, but we had everything we needed. Dinner on the table every night. Clean clothes. A warm home. Parents who showed up to every school event and worried about us constantly. Maybe too constantly. Growing up, I always felt suffocated by their concern. They worried about everything. Where I was going. Who I was with. What time I'd be home. They had rules about everything. Curfews. Dress codes. Approved friends. I understood they were trying to protect me, but it felt like control. Like they didn't trust me to make my own decisions. I was a good student. I got good grades, stayed out of trouble, followed most of their rules. But inside, I was restless. I read books about big cities and exciting careers. I dreamed of a life beyond our small town. A life where I could be whoever I wanted to be without my parents watching every move. When I graduated high school, I got a scholarship to a university 3 hours away. It wasn't far by most standards, but to my parents, it might as well have been across the world. Mom cried when we packed my things. Dad kept checking and rechecking that I had everything I needed. They made me promise to call every week. To come home for holidays. To be careful. College was freedom. For the first time in my life, I could make my own choices. Stay out late. Choose my own friends. Dress how I wanted. Study what interested me. I loved it. I felt like I was finally becoming myself instead of just being their daughter. I majored in marketing and did well. I made friends who were nothing like the people from my hometown. Friends who talked about careers and travel and living in big cities. Friends whose parents didn't call them 3 times a week to check in. Friends who seemed so much more sophisticated and independent than I felt. I started going home less and less. The visits became tense. My parents would ask questions about my life that felt invasive. They didn't understand my career goals. They worried about me living in the city after graduation. They asked when I was going to settle down, get married, give them grandchildren. Every visit ended with me feeling frustrated and them feeling hurt. After graduation, I got a job in Chicago. A good job at a marketing firm. I was excited. My parents were worried. Chicago is so far away, Mom said. It's dangerous, Dad added. Why can't you find something closer to home? I tried to explain. This was my dream job. This was the opportunity I'd been working toward. But they didn't understand. Or they didn't want to understand. The conversation ended badly, with me saying things I shouldn't have said. You just want to keep me small. You don't want me to succeed. You don't believe in me. I moved to Chicago anyway. I threw myself into my career. I worked long hours, climbed the corporate ladder, made good money. I dated. I went to parties. I traveled. I built a life that looked successful from the outside. But I called home less and less. The conversations were always the same. Mom asking when I was coming to visit. Dad asking if I was eating properly, if I was safe, if I needed money. Me getting defensive. Them getting hurt. The distance between us growing wider. Then I met Ryan. He was successful, charming, confident. Everything I thought I wanted. We moved in together after 6 months. My parents were devastated when I told them. They were old-fashioned, religious. Living together before marriage was wrong in their eyes. They begged me to reconsider. I told them it was my life and my choice. The phone calls became arguments. They didn't approve of Ryan. They thought I was making mistakes. They tried to give advice I didn't want. I felt like that suffocated teenager again, being told what to do, being judged for my choices. The final break came at Daniel's wedding. I brought Ryan. My parents were cold to him. Mom made comments about proper relationships and values. Dad barely spoke to either of us. I was humiliated and angry. After the reception, I confronted them. You can't just accept that I'm an adult living my own life, I said. You're always judging me, always disapproving, always trying to control me. We're your parents, Mom said, crying. We love you. We just want what's best for you. What's best for me? Or what you think is best. You don't even know me anymore. You don't want to know me. You just want me to be who you think I should be. Dad's face was hard. We raised you better than this, Jessica. We taught you right from wrong. If you can't respect that, if you can't respect us, then what? I interrupted. Then what, Dad? Then maybe you shouldn't come around until you can. The words hung in the air between us. I waited for him to take them back. He didn't. Fine, I said. Fine. If that's how you want it, I won't come around at all. I left that night. I drove back to Chicago with Ryan, crying angry tears the whole way. And I didn't call. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. My pride wouldn't let me reach out. And apparently, neither would theirs. Daniel tried to mediate at first. He called me, begging me to just talk to them. They miss you, Jess, he said. They're hurt. Just call them. Just try. But I was hurt too. Hurt and stubborn and convinced I was right. They're the ones who basically told me not to come back, I said. If they want to talk to me, they can call me. They didn't call. And neither did I. 7 years passed. 7 years of building my life without them. Ryan and I eventually broke up. The relationship I defended so fiercely ended badly. I changed jobs twice, climbing higher but feeling emptier. I had friends, but no one really close. I had success, but no one to share it with. Sometimes I thought about calling home. Usually late at night when I was alone. But then I'd remember the arguments, the judgment, the ultimatum. And I'd tell myself I was better off. They'd made their choice. I'd made mine. Until the phone call came. It was Daniel who called. I saw his name on my phone and almost didn't answer. We'd stayed in touch, but barely. Occasional texts on birthdays. Short, surface-level conversations. He'd given up trying to reunite me with our parents years ago. Jess, he said, and his voice was shaking. It's Dad. He had a stroke. He's in the hospital. Everything stopped. What? When? Is he okay? He's stable, but it was bad. The doctors aren't sure about long-term damage yet. He can't move his right side. His speech is affected. Jess, you need to come home. Does he want me there? He's been asking for you. He keeps trying to say your name. I booked a flight that night. I called in sick to work. I threw clothes in a bag without really thinking about what I was packing. My hands were shaking. My mind was racing. 7 years. 7 years since I'd seen my father. And now he was in a hospital bed, asking for me. The flight felt endless. I kept thinking about the last time I'd seen him. His face hard with disappointment. His words, then maybe you shouldn't come around until you can. Had those really been the last words we'd spoken to each other? 7 years ago? What if he died? What if those words were the last we'd ever exchange? The thought made me physically sick. Daniel picked me up from the airport. He looked older, tired. He hugged me tight. I'm glad you came, he said. How's Mom handling it? She's barely holding it together. She's been at the hospital since it happened. She won't leave his side. My stomach twisted. Does she know I'm coming? Yeah. I told her. What did she say? Daniel hesitated. She just nodded. She didn't say anything. We drove to the hospital in heavy silence. I stared out the window at the town I'd grown up in. It looked smaller than I remembered. Older. Some stores had closed. Some new ones had opened. But it was mostly the same. Frozen in time while I'd been away living my life. They've gotten old, Jess, Daniel said quietly. I see them every week, so I didn't notice it happening gradually. But you're going to notice. They've aged a lot. I didn't know what to say to that. When we got to the hospital, Daniel led me through the corridors. My heart was pounding. My mouth was dry. I didn't know if I was ready for this. But ready or not, we were standing outside room 304. Do you want me to come in with you? Daniel asked. No, I said. I need to do this alone. He squeezed my shoulder and walked away, leaving me standing there, staring at that closed door. I took a deep breath and pushed it open. The room was dim, quiet except for the beeping of machines. And there, in the bed, was my father. Daniel was right. He looked so much older. His hair had gone completely gray. His face was thin, pale. He seemed so small in that hospital bed. This man who had always seemed so strong, so solid, now looked fragile. And beside him, in a chair, was my mother. She looked up when I entered. Her face was drawn, exhausted. Her hair was grayer too, pulled back in a messy bun. Her eyes were red from crying. We stared at each other across the room. 7 years of silence between us. Hi, Mom, I whispered. Her face crumpled. Jessica, she said, and her voice broke. I moved toward her, and suddenly we were hugging. She was crying. I was crying. I'm sorry, I kept saying. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You're here, she said. You came. That's what matters. She pulled back and gestured to Dad. He's been sleeping on and off. The medication makes him tired. But he'll be so happy you're here. I looked at my father lying in that bed, and my heart broke. What had I done? What had I thrown away? 7 years I could have had with them. 7 years of holidays and phone calls and visits. 7 years I'd wasted being stubborn and proud. I sat on the other side of the bed and took his hand. It was cool, thin. I could feel every bone. Dad, I said softly. It's me. It's Jess. I'm here. His eyes fluttered open. It took a moment for them to focus on me. And then something changed in his face. Recognition. And something that looked like relief. He tried to speak, but the words came out slurred, difficult to understand. Don't try to talk, I said, crying. Just rest. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. He squeezed my hand weakly. Tears ran down his face into his pillow. Mom came around the bed and stood beside me. He's been so worried about you, she said quietly. All these years. He never said it, but I knew. He missed you every single day. Mom, I'm so sorry. I was so stupid. I was so wrong. Shoo, she said, putting her hand on my shoulder. You're here now. That's what matters. But was it enough? Could I make up for 7 years in whatever time we had left? I stayed in that hospital room for 3 days straight. I barely left except to use the bathroom. Mom brought me food from the cafeteria. Daniel brought me clean clothes. But I wouldn't leave Dad's side. During those 3 days, I watched Mom care for him with such tenderness. She adjusted his pillows. She helped him drink water through a straw. She wiped his face. She talked to him constantly, telling him about Daniel's kids, about the garden, about the neighbors. Small, everyday things. The kind of things I knew nothing about anymore. I realized how much I'd missed. Daniel's children, my nieces, were 4 and 6 years old. I'd never met them. Never held them as babies. Never been Aunt Jess to them. Mom had had surgery 2 years ago for a health scare I knew nothing about. Dad had retired from the hardware store. They'd sold the house I grew up in and moved to a smaller place closer to Daniel. Their lives had gone on without me. And mine had gone on without them. And what did I have to show for it? A career that left me feeling empty? An apartment full of expensive things but no real warmth? Friends who were really just acquaintances? I'd been so focused on being independent, on proving I didn't need them, that I'd built a life with no foundation. No roots. No real connection. On the 3rd day, Dad was more alert. His speech was still difficult, but he could communicate better. The doctors said the stroke had been severe, but he would recover some function with therapy. They couldn't say how much. Will he walk again? I asked the doctor. It's too early to tell. With physical therapy, possibly. But it will be a long recovery. Months, maybe years. He'll need a lot of support. I looked at Mom. She looked exhausted, overwhelmed. She was 71 years old. How was she supposed to handle this alone? I'll help, I said. Whatever you need, I'll help. Mom looked at me with surprise. But your job. Your life in Chicago. I can work remotely. I can take a leave. Mom, I want to help. Please let me help. That night, after Mom had finally gone home to sleep in a real bed, I sat alone with Dad. He was awake, looking at me with clear eyes. Dad, I said, holding his hand. I need to say something. I need to apologize. For everything. For the things I said. For cutting you out of my life. For wasting 7 years being angry and stubborn. He shook his head slightly, trying to speak. No, let me finish. You and Mom, you were just trying to love me. Trying to protect me. And I took that love and threw it back in your face because I was too proud to see it for what it was. I thought you were trying to control me, but you were just being parents. Tears were streaming down my face. I thought I was so smart. So independent. I thought I didn't need you. But I was wrong, Dad. I've been so wrong. These last 7 years, I've been so lonely. So empty. I built this whole life that looks good on the outside, but inside I've been miserable. Because I didn't have you. I didn't have Mom. I didn't have family. Dad squeezed my hand. His eyes were wet too. And now I'm terrified, I continued. I'm terrified that I came back too late. That I wasted all this time and now I won't have enough time to make it up to you. To show you that I love you. That I'm sorry. That I want to be your daughter again. Dad managed to speak then. The words were slow, slurred, but clear enough. Always, my daughter. Always. I laid my head on the bed beside him and sobbed. He stroked my hair with his good hand, the way he used to when I was a little girl and had a nightmare. When I finally composed myself, I made a decision. I called my boss the next morning and asked for a 3-month leave of absence. I called my landlord and arranged to sublet my apartment. I packed up what I needed from Chicago and moved back home. Not for a visit. Not temporarily. I moved back. Mom protested at first. Jessica, you can't give up your life for us. I'm not giving up my life, Mom. I'm getting it back. The first weeks were hard. Dad came home from the hospital, but he needed round-the-clock care. We set up a hospital bed in the living room. We hired a physical therapist who came 3 times a week. We learned how to help him with basic tasks he couldn't do alone anymore. It was exhausting. It was frustrating. Some days Dad would get angry at his own limitations and take it out on us. Some days Mom would be so tired she'd cry. Some days I wondered if I'd made the right choice. But then there were other moments. Moments that made it all worth it. Like the first time Dad took 3 steps with his walker. The look of pride and determination on his face. The way Mom cried happy tears. The way he looked at me and said, clearly, thank you. Like the Sunday afternoon Mom and I spent baking cookies together, something we used to do when I was young. We didn't talk about the lost years. We just baked and laughed and got flour everywhere. Like the evening Daniel brought his daughters over and I got to read them bedtime stories. The way they called me Aunt Jess and hugged me goodnight. The family I'd been missing without even realizing it. My relationship with my parents slowly healed. We talked about everything. About the fight. About the years apart. About the hurt on both sides. We didn't excuse it or pretend it hadn't happened. We faced it honestly. We were too strict, Mom admitted one night. We held on too tight. We were so afraid of losing you that we pushed you away. And I was too proud, I said. Too stubborn. I should have called. Should have reached out. I wasted so much time. We all did, Dad said. His speech was improving week by week. But we have time now. We have now. And he was right. We had now. That was what mattered. I found work I could do remotely. Freelance marketing consulting. It paid less than my corporate job, but it gave me flexibility. Time to help with Dad's care. Time to spend with family. Time to build the relationships I'd neglected. I also had to face some hard truths about myself. About why I'd really cut my parents off. Yes, they'd been overprotective. Yes, we'd had different values. But the real reason I'd stayed away was shame. Shame that my perfect life in Chicago wasn't actually that perfect. Shame that Ryan had turned out to be controlling and dismissive, exactly what they'd worried about. Shame that my high-powered career left me feeling empty. Shame that they'd been right about some things and I'd been too proud to admit it. One evening, about 2 months after I'd moved back, I sat with Mom on the porch while Dad napped inside. The sun was setting, painting the sky pink and orange. "I need to tell you something," I said. "About Ryan. About why we broke up." Mom looked at me gently. "You don't have to, sweetheart." "I want to. I need to." I took a deep breath. "You were right about him. He wasn't good to me. He was controlling. Manipulative. He made me feel small. And I stayed with him for 3 years because I was too proud to admit that my parents had been right and I'd been wrong." Mom reached over and took my hand. "Oh, Jessica. I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. I'm sorry I chose him over you. I'm sorry for so many things. We all made mistakes," Mom said. "We said things we shouldn't have. We drew lines we shouldn't have drawn. But you're here now. And that's what I choose to focus on. Not what we lost, but what we still have." I leaned my head on her shoulder, and she put her arm around me. We sat like that as the sun set, peaceful and quiet and together. 6 months after I moved back, Dad walked across the room without his walker. It was only about 10 steps, and he was unsteady, but he did it. We all cried. We celebrated like he'd won a marathon. That night, he sat me down and said, "I'm proud of you." "For what, Dad?" "For coming back. For staying. For putting your life on hold to help us. I know what you gave up." "I didn't give anything up," I said honestly. "I got everything back. I got my family back. I got myself back. The person I was in Chicago, that wasn't really me. Or maybe it was part of me, but not the best part. This, being here, being with you and Mom, this is who I want to be." "You can still have your career," Dad said. "Your dreams. You don't have to sacrifice everything." "I know. And I will. But it'll be different now. Better. Because I'll have balance. I'll have family. I'll have what actually matters." A year after I moved back, Daniel and his wife asked if I'd be interested in going into business with them. They wanted to start a marketing firm focused on small businesses in our region. I said yes. 2 years after I moved back, Dad could walk on his own again. He still had some weakness on his right side, but he was independent. He and Mom started traveling, taking the trips they'd always planned but never gotten around to. And they invited me on some of them. 3 years after I moved back, I met someone. Tom. He was kind, genuine, nothing flashy. He ran a construction business and volunteered with Habitat for Humanity. He was patient with my parents and great with Daniel's kids. He was exactly the kind of man my parents had always hoped I'd find. When I introduced them, Mom hugged him and Dad shook his hand. They didn't interfere. Didn't offer unsolicited advice. They'd learned too. We'd all learned. It's been 5 years since I got that phone call about Dad's stroke. 5 years since I walked back into their lives. 5 years since I came home. I'm 39 now. I run a successful marketing business with Daniel. I'm engaged to Tom. We're planning a wedding here in town, small and simple, with family and close friends. Dad's going to walk me down the aisle. That's something I didn't think would be possible when I first saw him in that hospital bed. My relationship with my parents is different now than it was when I was young. Better. More equal. They see me as an adult, and I see them as people with their own fears and flaws and good intentions. We don't agree on everything, but we respect each other. We communicate instead of assuming. We forgive instead of holding grudges. Sometimes I think about those 7 lost years. About what we missed. The holidays. The conversations. The ordinary, everyday moments of being family. I can't get those back. That's a regret I'll carry forever. But I also know that regret has made me who I am now. It's taught me what matters. It's taught me that pride is worthless compared to love. That independence means nothing if you're alone. That success isn't measured by your job title or your bank account, but by the relationships you build and maintain. I talk to my parents several times a week now. I have dinner with them every Sunday. I know their friends, their routines, their worries and joys. I'm part of their lives, and they're part of mine. Not because I have to be, but because I want to be. Last week, Mom and I were looking through old photo albums. She showed me pictures of myself as a child, as a teenager, as a young woman. In some of them, I looked happy. In others, I looked restless, defiant, eager to leave. I was so desperate to get away, I said, looking at a photo of myself at 18. I thought this place, this life, was too small for me. You needed to go, Mom said. You needed to find out who you were outside of being our daughter. We understand that now. We just wish. She paused. We just wish we hadn't lost so much time in the middle. Me too, I said. But we have time now. And I'm not wasting any more of it. She hugged me tight. Neither are we. If you're listening to this and you're estranged from your parents, I want you to know something. I can't tell you what to do. Every situation is different. Some relationships are toxic and need to end. Some parents don't deserve a relationship with their children. But if your situation is like mine was, if it's pride and stubbornness and old arguments keeping you apart, please consider reaching out. Please consider swallowing your pride and making the first move. Because you don't know how much time you have left. You don't know if there will be a crisis that forces you back together, or if you'll just drift apart forever until it's too late. I was lucky. I got a second chance. Not everyone does. Don't wait for a stroke or a sickness or a tragedy to realize what you've lost. Don't let years slip by because you're waiting for them to apologize first, or because you're too proud to admit you were wrong. Life is short. Shorter than you think. The time you waste being angry or hurt or stubborn is time you'll never get back. And when you're standing in a hospital corridor trying to work up the courage to face the people you've been avoiding, you'll wish you'd done it sooner. I'm Jessica. I'm 39 years old. I'm a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a fiancée, a business owner, a friend. I'm someone who made terrible mistakes and was given the grace to fix them. I'm someone who learned, the hard way, that family isn't something to run from but something to run toward. I wasted 7 years. 7 years I can never get back. But I'm not wasting another day. Not another hour. Every Sunday dinner, every phone call, every ordinary moment with my parents is a gift. A second chance. A reminder of what I almost lost forever. If you have the chance to make things right with your family, take it. Take it now. Before it's too late. Before you're standing in a hospital corridor wondering if you'll get the chance to say you're sorry. Because I can tell you from experience, regret is a heavy burden to carry. But forgiveness, reconciliation, coming home, those are the things that set you free. I came home. Not to the place, but to the people. To the family I'd walked away from in anger and pride. And in coming home, I found myself again. The real me. Not the person I was trying to be in Chicago. Not the person I thought I should be. But the person I actually am. A daughter. Part of a family. Loved. Forgiven. Home. And there's nowhere else I'd rather be.